welcome to Tripod, our video podcast series in association with the SEVA Group. I'm Martin Moodie.
I'm Roger Jackson.
Roger, again, it's great to be back with you. I've been on the road for a little while since I last saw you, and I suspect you're going to be on the road soon. Tell us what's up in your life.
Yeah, I think most of us are all gearing up for, obviously, TFWA Singapore for the Asia conference. I don't have any business in the Americas, but I know a lot of our colleagues, Martin, have been over on that side, over to Florida for that conference. And from what I hear and what I've read, it was a fantastic conference. So I'm really looking forward to TFWA in a few days' time. Actually, now we're less than a couple of weeks away. From what I'm hearing, great numbers confirmed. I think it's going to be very, very well attended and lots of people showing. And I think it just goes to say what we already know, which is travel retail is really pushing back, getting closer to those sort of 2019 numbers. And the fact that we have now got a full year of travel retail trade shows, which is going to be the first time where we've had everything back in a 12-month calendar period, I think it's really exciting. And I think from speaking to some of our guests and friends and colleagues, I think everyone's just really pleased and buoyed that we can all be back together as an industry, and that the industry is growing now month on month, and we're getting closer to those pre-pandemic levels. And then I'm sure we're all going to look to grow ahead of that.
I echo those words entirely and those sentiments. I've just come back myself, Roger, from Hainan. So I attended the Hainan Expo. The first two I couldn't attend because of the pandemic. We couldn't fly in there. So this was the first of the three Hainan Expos to be had without the shadow of the pandemic, if you like. And goodness me, what a blockbuster of an event it was! Extraordinary scale to it. But what interested me, of course, most was the travel retail presence there. All the islands, or most of the islands, travel retailers actually had stands there. And, you know, we're not talking small exhibition booths, we're talking massive presence, you know, GDF Plaza, Wang Fujing Duty Free, the newcomer, CTG, of course, parent company of China Duty Free Group, HTDF, just Zhuhai Duty Free, all with lovely, lovely stands, very expansive. And I visited several of those stores, and they're full of people, and there's a really good mood in Hainan, and that's important for our industry. And then I popped over when I returned to Taipei. I spent a great day there with the Everich Duty Free team, and they were really hit hard, not just in their traditional duty-free business, but also with their offshore business in Penghu and Kinmen when the major Taiwan lockdown happened. Well, that's all bouncing back. They're getting towards 60% of traffic and sales. Now, Everich have invested heavily during the crisis. So you're seeing all these new shops open. You probably saw some of the pictures on our website, including a fantastic new wine and spirit shop. And a two-story bookshop, really great stuff going on. So, as you say, the mood is better, and retailers and brands are investing accordingly. So I think we can be pretty optimistic and look forward to a brilliant TFWA show in Singapore. So I look forward to catching up with you and having a glass there. And we might have a glass with today's guest. Shall we bring him in?
Yeah, let's get him in, Martin.
So this episode of Tripod's special guest is Garry Maxwell, the UK-based owner of GMAX Travel Retail, a company he created in early 2020 after spending 18 years, of course, alongside that premier portfolio as the key third man with co-owners Kevin Walsh and Andrew Webster. But Garry's been in the travel retail world for a lot longer than that, having entered the business with Ocean Trading, part of Alders International. Hands up, who remembers those names? That was way back in 1981, I think. Garry was about 10 at the time. But they were powerful businesses in their time. In fact, Alders International was the #2 rival to then #1 DFS Group for many, many years. I remember it well. Now, the intervening years have taken in stints on both the supply and retail sides, with Livingstone, Stay in the Line, Elizabeth Arden, and Scorpio Distributors, all fine companies. Now, Garry launched his new business in early 2020. It wasn't the only thing to launch. A certain well-known coronavirus had just arrived on the industry scene around the same time, sparking what we all know now would become the most prolonged and painful crisis in travel retail history. But anyone who knows Garry Maxwell, Gazza to his many mates, and Gary Gadget, I know, to many, knows he's not going to let something like a global crisis stop him. His business hasn't just survived, it's flourished. And that's some achievement, I can tell you. We're going to find out more, no doubt, on today's program. We'll also, as usual, find out a lot more about our guest's life and interests, including, no doubt, his beloved Southampton Football Club, the Saints, currently, alas, languishing, I believe, Garry, at the foot of the Premier League, prompting a reworking of the club's anthem to go something like, "Oh, when the Saints go marching down." Garry, Garry Gadget Maxwell, welcome to Tripod.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I was going to wear a black tie for my football team, but not quite yet. We're still clinging on.
They are clinging on, and it's a real dogfight down the bottom of that Premier League, Garry. So anything could happen yet.
I almost want to be put out of my misery. If it's going to happen, can someone just tell me now?
All right. Well, listen, it's great to have you on the show, and I'll pass over to Roger, who knows a lot more about football than I do, because as you know, I specialise in that other ball game with the ball shaped like an egg. So we won't talk about that today. Roger, you and Garry also know each other for some time, so I'll let you kick off the program and we'll go from there and have some fun.
Thanks, Martin. Hey, Garry, hope you're well.
Hi, Roger. I'm fine, thank you.
Garry, we always start off where it all began for you. So tell us a bit about where you're from, early influences, just anything about those early years, please.
Yes, certainly. Well, I was born and bred in Southampton. As they have a saying in football, you should support the team and the place where you're born. You know, I'd have loved to have been born in Barcelona, but unfortunately I wasn't. So you know, that's been a thing I've had to suffer and endure over many years. But and my first job from leaving college was actually just a last minute thing. I was actually training to be a draftsman, funny enough. And that was the first job from leaving college. And I had one grade not quite high enough in one of the categories, so the job didn't happen. So I went, so I actually went to the college, and then on leaving college, I had an opportunity to, really it's just to get some office and admin experience, and Ocean Trading was based in Southampton. So a friend of a friend got me LinkedIn, had the interview, and that's how it all started. And then after not long, right about 6-7 months, there was an opportunity to go into sales. I joined the same day as the sales manager. They had a massive change of staffing from director level, and it kind of regrouped. And I think his exact words for me is, "You talk a lot, you'd be quite good at sales, I think." so that's where the job came from initially. And immediately, you know, I then got into travel retail. The first region I was handed was Greece, which was great. At like a 19-20-year-old guy, it was fantastic. And all the local ferries, cruise ships, Canadian Navy we used to deal with. You know, we used to supply kind of everything. But on the Ocean Trading was the kind of distribution arm of Orders International. So a lot of airline business. And it was a great grounding because, you know, you had about 48,000 products in the range as a complete retailer. And you had many training courses, one day here, maybe a 2-day Sony course, a 1-day Swatch course, you know, and it gave you a great learning of small information on all different categories. And that was really helpful. You know, as Martin says, it was a long time ago, and a lot of people we met there's still some hanging around in the business. I actually returned back to them at another stage when I worked more on fragrance and that one. You know, a lot of the people worked there from your James Prescotts to Nigel Keels to you know, many different people around the industry, Peter Blatch, people like that. So there's many people that have had some kind of experience at Ocean Trading or Orders over the years. So yeah, so that was a great thing, and really has helped kind of guide me in travel retail. I enjoyed the industry and moved forward from that, really. And then I left to join a company called London Livingstone, which was a jewelry company. I felt I needed kind of on the road sales experience. So that was non-travel retail, although I managed to bring them into a few travel retail areas. And then I got the opportunity and went back to ocean trading in a different period of time. And that was kind of more fragrance. I worked with Chanel and Calvin Klein and the Eurocost brands and all the Italian fragrances, which was again a different category to work on, and taught me a lot of areas for that. So a few changes, and then I was approached by an operator, Stena Line, to come and work for them, to move my family down to Kent, and that was a manic time pre-1999. The business was incredible. You could almost do anything, and the sales were just crazy, but incredibly competitive, which was quite exciting. You know, whether it was anything from the Eurotunnel coming to P&O to Sea France to hover speed. You know, it was a massive area for all categories as well. So I was given the position of total gift buyer, and also eventually after a year I was given confectionery as well, which was obviously a big area in that route. So again, a different thing. So I've got a kind of an unusual background, which has given me some different areas, you know, from retailer to marketing to promotions to mainly on the sales side over the years.
And what do you think your favorite category has been? Because not many people in travel retail have covered all of them, which I think you have.
Yeah,
you've mentioned alcohol, P&C, confectionery, electronics, you know, gifting.
Yeah,
what's the one that really stands out for you?
Well, it's really funny. Probably the one I've done more so recently. I had a little bit of work in it in the ocean trading days, but and on the Stena days, but I've really enjoyed working in liquor. That's been very interesting. Cosmetics was interesting as well, but I suppose because of the Garry Gadget nickname, the electronics was something I was always quite renowned for, and I have some quite exciting things coming on that soon as well. I still work in that area to some extent. Again, I love the uniqueness. I've always enjoyed the buying gave me an opportunity to work and bring some of these new products to the industry, and you know, I get a great kick out of bringing something that maybe someone says won't work and does work, you know, and you can bring something that becomes a success in an industry, which, you know, and that's the thing. I kind of like that, and I still do. I managed to do that when I went to Premier Portfolio as well. I kind of sourced a lot of their ranges, and now, you know, in my conjunction in the new position, we still try to look at the uniqueness, the USP of products. You know, it's trying to do that bringing something different to the industry, which is, I think, what travel retail is all about. Something that maybe you haven't seen before.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree, Gary. I think that's why we all love this industry, because it is that uniqueness. It's always different. There's always got to be something fresh. You mentioned around Premier Portfolio, you joined in 2002.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit around that, you know, about joining that team. And I'm sure there was some highlights of working there as well for so long.
Yeah, it was interesting. Well, Kevin and Andrew are two of my closest friends anyway. We worked together at Ronson. So we worked there. We kind of the guys called me when I was moving back from Kent, and they said, you know, come and have a look, because basically the company was struggling, and you know, it was kind of them trying to rebuild the travel retail business and go from there. And so we worked together. You know, unfortunately, eventually, what came from that was the two guys got made redundant, and that pushed them into starting Premier Portfolio. And that's how it happened, and eventually I rejoined them. So I had a couple of years on my own at Ronson with a much smaller team, trying to establish the business, rebuild the business for them. Unfortunately, the kind of shareholders and owners were still keen to kind of sell off the business. So, but I had an opportunity to still gain some listings and areas. And then eventually the guys, we obviously still kept in touch. When they had enough to look at taking on another sales guy, when they built the business up enough, then I had a chat with Kevin, and then we kind of rejoined together. And it was fantastic. You know, it was great. I remember one of the early days, I think we were sat at a bar deciding what area I covered. And initially it was like, well, no, that's a tough area. That's a tough area. When you're thinking 20 odd years ago, it was kind of like, so I actually managed to pick a lot of the emerging markets. I like my travel, as Martin knows, and I picked, you know, the Middle East and South America and all these kind of regions and parts of Asia. And one, they're all nice and warm, and two, they, you know, in the last 20 years, they've been massive growth areas. So it was actually a very good choice, you know. And I think it got to the stage where most of the meetings when we were in Cannes and all those sort of places would tended to be my meetings. But and it, you know, again, it taught you region. I think an unusual part of my background is I haven't specialized in one region. I've really been global for over 30 years, and that's that teaches you a lot as well, you know. So
and then we come full circle, and obviously you and I met here in Dubai not that long ago, a few months ago, and it brings me on to GMAX. So tell us about GMAX, tell us about how it's been going, and obviously, as Martin mentioned at the start, coming out of a global pandemic, about running your own business, as me and Martin do as well. Tell us how all of that's been for you.
Well, it was an interesting one. Obviously, it hit everybody hard. The thing with Premier Portfolio, they were already going through the stage of we were reducing certain areas of our product categories and not sourcing so much of our own product other than the products we had tooling for making. So they still continued with the model aircraft and some of the agencies, but really we're reducing and trying to increase profitability. But a big part of that was in-flight, and which was hit, as you can imagine, dramatically. And that really forced the guys to really look at things and see if it was the right option to continue. And unfortunately, you know, they decided to cease trading, which was sad for the industry as well. You know, we were a very popular company, we did very well. I think for me, it was interesting. I had so many opportunities to start my own business and ideas, but you know, when you work with two of your friends and you're very successful, it's hard to break away to some extent. And you know, and the guys had no doubt that, you know, me setting off on my own, they said, oh, you'll be great, you'll be fine, don't worry about it. But at that stage, did we know it was 3 months, 6 months, 9 months before the pandemic would do it? So when I broke the news to my wife, I'm going to go back into travel retail, and I think she looked at me and said, there's no planes flying, there's no airports open, you know, what are you going to do? You know, and you know, the start for like a lot of people was very, very tough. You know, I never earned a penny for the first 14 months. And the, you know, the initial thought was to take on some of the brands I work with and dealt with. So I would do, I took a couple of the brands from Premier Portfolio, which they're happy for me to carry that on. And one of the first things, we had a load of listings with airlines in Germany. And the first message I got was, right, we're getting rid of the lower 15% of brands, and we're just focusing on the area because, you know, we need to focus clear stock. So I kind of lost all that business almost immediately, which was quite a big part of business. So that was like a really tough start. And I was like, oh, right, what do I do now, you know? So we gradually started just continue. And it was really, you know, I'm a very competitive person. I'm a very determined person. So I kind of like stuck at it, and gradually brands came, an opportunity came. A lot of friends contact me with help to help them in certain areas, and we gradually did a few different opportunities. And then we had an opportunity for liquor. Initially, I started with a brand, a friend of mine, Richard Lombard-Chibnall, who mentioned Molly Malone. I said, what a great name. I must have a look at that. And I wasn't necessarily thinking liquor at the time. It was more electronics, it was more cosmetics, it was more this sort of area. And then I met Equiano, and Equiano came to me. We had a number of conversations. I met them in Cannes, I met them in London, and then eventually had a call with them, and they said, we're actually talking to two people, and I think you guys know the story. And the other person, I didn't know at the time, they said, we're a bit split because we want you both, but we don't know how to do it. And the other guy was Tim Young, who I knew. And they said to me, and they said to Tim, I know, would you guys consider working together? Because that would be our ideal. And that's how that happened. And it's great. We're loving that side of it. We're growing the category. We're very proud of our portfolio now. We have a really unique range, and the customers and consumers are loving it at the moment. So so that sort of thing. The beauty started before that, so that I needed a fantastic, what I thought, unique brand again. So I ended up with working luckily with Margaret Dabbs London, which is again a specialist brand. And I think if you look at the data in the pandemic, a lot of things that were coming up that people, if they were changing things, were looking for specialist product areas and expertise in the area rather than just another brand joined to a major company. And so I started to look at that sort of area, and Margaret's range is phenomenal. She's a Harley Street podiatrist by trade, and we just said, to me it was a no-brainer looking at a brand that you can actually, when you travel, your feet swell up, you're tired, you've got an area that's not really catered for enough. For long haul flights, the brand is amazing. And it's a global brand, which is growing. We're really getting an input into certain areas, into Asia now, on the cruise ships, and in airport retail. So from that area on the beauty side, we added other brands such as Polish London, again Harley Street specialist in dental and oral care. Teeth whitening is a global multi-million-pound business. So maybe trying to make people think outside the box for travel, and why not do that while they're traveling? So it's certain brands. So I'm still trying to do the kind of Garry Gadget in cosmetics and skincare, and trying to bring something different to the table if I can, and luckily that kind of the brands I'm getting offered, which is still coming in almost daily, which is great, but there's only so much you can do. We had a brand the other day on that got investment on Dragon's Den, which is a brand called Botanical, only a matter of a few weeks ago, which was fantastic. 4 dragons fighting over it, and 2 dragons took it in the end, which is obviously great news for the brand. Botanical is a kind of skin elixir, repairing for skin complaints, acne, and so again, thinking differently that people can have. It's all plant-based as well, so there's a lot of things, and I think huge potential for the industry as well. The supplements market in health is growing fantastically worldwide as well. So everything kind of has a unique area to it. So that sort of thing. But the liquor has kind of grown incredibly. Equiano, as I say, again, the uniqueness, the world's first African and Caribbean rum with a fabulous story behind it. Fabulous tasting product as well. So we're very excited with that. And since then, we've added, we work with Two Stacks, which I work in conjunction with Martin Mullen as well. And Two Stacks is great. Again, it's a real go-getting company that really think outside the box, and it's a fabulous range of whiskies, multi-award winning. They're winning some great awards at the moment. They've just released a unique cream liqueur, which Martin, you have to try on the stand in Singapore, and you, Roger. It's incredible. It takes cream liqueurs to a different level, with a pot still peated single malt in there and double Irish cream. So again, they try and break the boundaries, which is great. And then, as you know, we signed AU Vodka, which is not just a brand. It's really, we're finding out it's a real phenomenon. It's as one big retailer in the Middle East said to us, that it's really the most exciting thing that happened in vodka for 25 years. And whiskey's grown, and rum categories coming up, and And this is really exciting, and the reactions we're having is incredible. You know, the initial listings we've had is we've gone on an airline recently, and they wrote to us after 14 days to look at adding a new flavour on. So which is crazy. So and their activation is so great for travel retail, I think, to really think outside the box. So so that's good. We've just had a fantastic show in the Americas as well. So so onwards and upwards, and I'm thoroughly enjoying working with Tim as well. We're different in many ways, but we work well together. So.
Well, Tim's a good friend of ours as well. So massive congratulations to you on GMAX, and obviously you and Tim working together. It's lovely to see from our side. Garry, we've spoken, 90% of the time on work. Yeah. Tell us a bit about family life. You mentioned your wife, some key influences, and maybe a couple of mentors.
Yeah, I think my wife has had a tough time with me in this industry. We're traveling for, I probably did about 100 flights a year for about 35 years, something like that. So she's been incredibly supportive on everything I've done, and especially had to be supportive in the last 2.5, 3 years, which has been, as I said, but very tough. I have 3 sons, again, all in very different areas with great jobs, and who knows, one day maybe join GMAX if I can persuade them, but if we can build it up enough. And I actually, it's very interesting, after having 3 boys, I have 3 granddaughters now, so it's completely opposite. So and we're loving that as well, so that's a great thing. So actually it's hard to travel with them sometimes as well, without them, but yeah, so I'm enjoying that side of it. But I think I'm very lucky in my family that I actually have a very long living family on both sides of the family, which is very lucky. My father's 94 in June. My mother's 85, and she still drives around, meets, goes to 20 places in a day, and so I think I got a kind of hard working ethic from them both, who worked a long way, worked a long time. And the background in Southampton is, obviously it's a docks area, so a lot of the family worked in those sort of areas. Even my wife wasn't originally from the area. Her great grandfather was on the Titanic, so lots of people were locally in that. My grandfather was on maiden voyages of some of the major ships down here, and my father worked in the docks area as well. So that sort of background. So what I was doing was kind of quite different from a lot of the family, but I think the determination came from that. Yeah, sorry.
No, that was great stories, Garry, and obviously your family has been and continues to be a massive influence on you. We're going to take you to the desert island in a minute, but I just want to touch on a point I raised at the start. Having known you for so many years, I know how obsessed and healthily fanatical you are about the really mighty Saints. So tell us about that relationship with your football club. It's a very strong one, and the kind of sense of pain you might be going through now. But you've had some very happy moments with them down the years. Well, that's right, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting actually. It's I started going to Southampton when I was about 6 years old, actually, to watch them. And basically from then on, I just loved that side. I mean, inside kind of the years when I could go regularly on my own. I mean, we had such amazing players that I will remember, with Mickey Shannon and Kevin Keegan and Alan Ball and Frank Worthington, all kind of at Charlie George, all at the same time. It was a bit like a Harlem Globetrotters kind of thing. And going up there was just like amazing. You'd go on a Tuesday night to the old Dell, and it was just like, I remember Peter Osgood sitting on the ball once, waiting for someone to come and tackle him, and it was just fun. And yes, we'd get a hiding every now and again, but every now and again we'd give someone a hiding as well. So it was kind of that got me into it. I love playing football. I played football in at my level till I was into my late 40s at 11-a-side sort of thing. So I still kind of enjoy that. So I was still playing 5-a-side till I got an injury about 3 years ago, and that kind of finished that. But my boys, one of my my middle son managed to play at the Southampton Academy for about 7 years, and he was one of they first started academies. So that was great to see and get involved in all that side, and traveling up and down the country with him. And he was a year younger, but he was playing with Theo Walcott and Gareth Bell and Adam Lallana, and it was a fantastic experience for him. But yeah, and he still does a bit on that side. But yeah, it's kind of, as it's ups and downs with football. It's frustrating being a Southampton fan because they have a kind of philosophy which is build them up, sell your best 2 or 3 players every year, and hopefully find the replacements. And one day your luck's going to run out, and I think that's possibly this season, and it happened the season before, and like about 2003. So it is tough, but you still look at their result. You'll always look at the result first. You'll know with Crystal Palace, Martin, and yeah, it's I still love. I don't go as much as I did, but I do go when I can. Traveling always got in the way. That was the issue. I was a season ticket holder. There's actually, because of the ocean trading link, there's a few Southampton fans in the industry. I used to have a season ticket with Glenn Williams, the ex-guy from Maxium. So, I still see Glenn regularly now. And yeah, there's a few. There's your James Prescott and Dave Whitney from Hardings, and a few other ones in the industry. I can remember one of the guys from Torvest as well. So yeah, for our sins. And Nigel Kill's a Portsmouth fan as well, so I have to bring that up. So
there you go. Well, I'm sure Nigel will be listening to this. Well, we hope you do stay up, Garry. Find a way to stay up, as long as you don't bring Leicester City down, because of course Susan Whelan will be no doubt watching this program and watching you, and she's a good friend of all of ours. And
exactly.
Leicester City not going so well this year, but they've picked up a few points in their last 2 games, but they're still down there in a very crowded relegation zone. So let's hope the Saints stay up and the Foxes stay up, and then we can all be happy. Garry, we've talked about work and your life to date. We're going to have some more fun now. We're going to take you to our resident desert island. It does have duty-free status, of course. You would expect nothing less from us. So I'm going to pass over to Roger. We're flying you there first class. In fact, it's the only class on Tripod Airlines, our distinctly low-cost carrier. And Roger's going to give you the opportunity to have some creature comforts. Back to you, Roger.
Thanks, Martin. Garry, for you, out of all of our guests, we've been doing this for nearly 2 years. This is probably going to be the hardest question.
I was thinking that.
And possibly the most dangerous one for you, for GMAX.
Yeah.
You can pick 2 duty-free items to take on the island.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is what and why?
Yeah, it is a tough one, actually, because I was thinking there'll have to be a bottle of drink there somewhere. And funny enough, when I worked for Stena, I got quite well into Irish whiskey, so I'm loving working with my 2-stack side. But I think as I'm on a Caribbean island, I am a big fan. It is one of my brands, but I think a bottle of Equiano would definitely be one of them. I love that product. I think the setting is just absolutely perfect for that. If I took a bottle of wine, I think Martin knows I love the Lebanese wines. I love the Chateau Moussard, and that's one of mine, my go-to choices. On the other products, it's a tough one. It'd have to be a gadget of some kind. I was trying to rack my brains on what to take, and I love my headphones and listening to music. But I was thinking that if I wanted to do everything, it'd probably be an iPad with a built-in GMAX solar charger. So I had no problem. And then I can watch my favorite films, listen to my favorite music, and I love quizzing and stuff like that as well. So I could load a load of quizzes on there as well, and that would while drinking a nice glass of Equiano. So probably something like that.
So along with your GMAX charger, your iPad and your whiskey, your rum, you can take one piece of music, so either an album or a song. What would you take?
Yeah, that's a tough thing. I kind of like. I like tracks quite often more than albums. I don't know if I've ever found an album that I love everything on. And I think I've always loved the kind of soul and that sort of area, R&B. So I actually put down, I thought that something like What a Wonderful World by Sam Cooke or Louis Armstrong, you know, and that sort of thing. I really like that sort of strong song. And I thought about album when one of the first albums I bought, and when I was kind of college times and I went to see them quite a lot, was actually UB40. And the first album was Signing Off, and you know, in the shape of the old UB40 you had for your dole queue and things like that. And I thought that would be quite an interesting album. So I've sneaked two in there, a song and an album. But
that's okay. I'm sure we can make an exception, Martin, for Garry. And now, along with your album, you can take a book or some reading material. What would you take with you, Garry?
Yeah, it's on the book side of things. I'll be honest, I'm not a massive reader. I love comedy. I love sports biographies as well. So I had to think about this, and I think that big fan of Muhammad Ali, and one of the books I really enjoyed reading was The Greatest by Ali, regarding Muhammad Ali. So I love that type of story and what he went through and everything as well, and what he achieved, and just a great character as well. So something like that, I think.
I think we all agree with that. And then finally from me, before I pass on to Martin, we're going to give you a special dinner party on the island. Myself and Martin will be the waiters. Don't worry, we're not the chefs. So don't worry about any food hygiene issues or getting ill. What three guests would you have for your dinner party? They can either be living today or in history, completely up to you.
Yeah, again, it's like I say, I'd like to have fun there, and maybe with some of my idols. So I probably would say Muhammad Ali again. Big fan. I'm a big boxing fan. To make a bit of fun and to enjoy a drink with me would be George Best, probably, to have a bit of Equiano with me. And to throw in a bit of mayhem, I'd probably put someone like Freddie Starr in there as well, just to cause absolute chaos. I could imagine myself drinking with George Best and Freddie Starr shadow boxing with Ali. and then in the background, if I'm allowed to sneak someone, I would have said I'd probably have had Alicia Keys on the piano.
Wow.
So something a bit different.
Fantastic.
There you go. That's a hell of a dinner party, Roger. We better not serve hamster, though, I think, with Freddie Starr.
He would be the food for us, Martin, wouldn't he?
Indeed. All right, Garry, listen, this has been terrific. You've been a great sport, so we're going to give you your choice of destination anywhere in the world. Again, on Tripod Airlines, we'll fly you to somewhere that's really top of your bucket list. Tell us where it would be and why.
Yeah, it's I'm very lucky to have done, I think, about 108 countries, I think it is, something like that, in all my traveling, which is amazing, really. Very fortunate to be able to do it. There's places I've been and places I haven't been. I'm jealous of you, Martin, because one thing I've really missed during the pandemic is Hong Kong. I've probably been over 150 times to Hong Kong, so the longest period I haven't been there. So I'm very excited. I'm actually going. I fly there Tuesday night, which is great.
Okay.
One of the places that I went during my trips, which kind of blew me away, was the Iguazu Falls down in South America, which is just incredible. You know, I love that. I'd love to take my wife there. And then a place I thought of that I haven't been to is actually down near your original way. Somewhere like the Cook Islands just looks amazing to me. It's somewhere like that. So it's a very hard choice. So for new, it would be the Cook Islands. To return to would probably be Iguazu Falls.
Right. Okay. Both long haul, Roger. So we're going to have to refuel Tripod Airlines a few times to get Garry there, but get you there we will. We promise.
Thank you.
My daughter Sinead, who works for the company, Garry, she went to the Cook Islands on her honeymoon with her now with her husband Adrian, and she said it was the most beautiful, unspoiled place on the planet. So a very good choice. Very good choice.
I just thought it's like, that's a bucket list one without a doubt.
All right. Garry, it's been great fun. We've learned a lot about you today, as we always do with our guests on Tripod. But I just want to comment on the last 3 years, really. You know, to start a business amid a global pandemic is unlucky, for sure. And we know that that pandemic has brought many a business to its knees, many an established business, let alone startups, and let alone a startup focused specifically on the travel retail business. So I know it just hasn't happened that you've survived and then flourished. I know you've worked your socks off. I know you've reaped the benefit of being a very good guide to the industry over so many years, and those relationships have helped you. And good partners like Tim Young, who Roger and I both have enormous time for, and a good selection of products. I think you've gone and got yourself a USP as GMAX, which is going for intriguing and different and innovative products, but very good products with, you know, good substance and value behind them, and without which even the best person in the world is ultimately going to fail. You will be judged on the quality of your product. So all of that has made you, what I'm very glad to say, is a success. Through the toughest of fires you've come through, and I think everybody watching this would just say, well done, Garry, you deserve that success, and to stick it out like you have and to have come through, hats off to you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to put a thing out as well, if I can, which is, you know, there's been some amazing help along the way, and I will put things out to people like Barry Gagan, who has been fantastic, helping me. You know, we're in the same category area, but it's nothing to do with that. You know, to some extent, he's been incredibly helpful. Glenn Williams, who's retired now, you know, a good friend of mine, and people like that from the industry I can always turn to and ask them questions. You know, should I do this? Should I do that? And, you know, and working with Tim, his expertise in liquor is fantastic. So that's helped us on that side. So I'm even trying to teach him a bit about beauty as well. But we'll see.
You might have your work cut out there. All right, Garry, fabulous to have you on the show. Roger, I'm going to let you sign off, and we'll both hopefully see you at the Tax-Free World Association show down in Singapore, Garry. Really look forward to that.
Garry, first of all, thank you so much for giving us the time and joining us on Tripod. I don't know how I can follow what Martin just said about your success, but all I can do is echo what he said. I think for you to start a business in COVID, most people would say you were mad, but to see your success now, especially in a travel retail industry as well, but to see your success now, I list some of your products as well, so I can vest for that quality. And just a big thank you for being who you are in the industry, because you do play a big role in the industry. You mentioned some others like Barry, who also play a big role, but you do as well. You always welcome me into this industry because I came in after you, and just a big thank you from us all, actually.
No, thank you very much. No, thank you for inviting me. It's been good fun, and look forward to catching up with you guys for real soon.
Yeah, see you there.
We will see you very soon. Garry Maxwell, thanks for being on Tripod. So that was Garry Gadget, Gazza Maxwell. Roger, what a character he is, but also quite some businessman to have achieved what he has, not only in his career, but I think especially through this cursed pandemic.
Yeah, I think, as you said, and I don't think anyone could have summed it up better than you did, Martin, you know, for him to keep going like he did, he said himself, no salary for 14 months. You know, that is an absolute sign of a true entrepreneur. You know, as I said to him, most people would say he was mad to open a travel retail business during COVID, which is exactly what he did. But he mentioned some of the brands that he's now working with exclusively in the channel, and all you can say is amazing. You know, hats off to him. I work across a couple of categories in the business that I run, and it's hard. it's really hard, and he covers, double or triple than what we do. So just hats off to him. Great success. I wish him loads more success, and I'm sure it'll come. And it was great to have him on. And like you said, I'm sure we'll both see him in Singapore.
Indeed. All right. Well, nice to be with you again, Roger. Travel safe down to Singapore. Rather shorter flight for me, but we'll see each other there and catch up, no doubt. In the meantime, nice to have you with us, ladies and gentlemen. This is Martin Moodie signing off from Tripods. See you next time.
See you next time.